Most of the world recognizes the ao dai as the national symbol of Vietnam. Not everyone knows that to be such an iconic symbol at the moment, the ao dai has been through a significant evolution from where it began. Let's dig into the story of why the ao dai is the perfect fusion of Eastern and Western culture. To be honest, no one's sure when the Vietnamese ao dai first sprouted its roots, but there is some historical context for us to make our own conclusions. Some experts say that the first sign of ao dai was found on antique bronze drums from the Dong Seong culture, before Han Chinese influence. Other experts believed it appeared around 40 AD, introduced by the Zheng sisters. These two heroines led a revolution against the Chinese Han dynasty and marked Vietnam's initial independent state. So, when was the exact time the ao dai was first introduced? Evidence shows it wasn't until 1744 that ao dai began to make a lasting impression on society. Vietnam was actually divided into two regions at that time. The northern lords of Hanoi forced their subjects to wear garments called ao yao lin, reminiscent of the Chinese robe worn by the Han people, including a front button gown and skirt, while the southern regions of Vietnam demanded that members wear trousers covered by a long silk gown, inspired by Champa-style attire. Later on, southern people shortened the gown to wear with trousers, called ao ba ba, while the northern version saw the first major evolutionary phase of the ao dai we know today, shifting in order to differentiate between two distinct social classes. The garb most widely worn by upper-class women during the 1800s was the ao ngu tung, a 5-panel gown consisting of 4 outer panels, 2 in the front sewn into one piece and 2 in the back, adding collar detail along with a hidden baby flap, an alternative to a bra which was not yet invented at that time. That was also the first time the dress had 2 slits on each hip, which later becomes the standout feature of ao dai that remains today. On the other hand, the working class wore a new, more tidy, functional design called ao tu tung, or 4-panel gown. In short, ao tu tung is another version of ao ngu tung, with the 2 back panels sewn into one piece. The front panels were not connected but could be tied together. As was typical for lower class clothing at the time, the 4-panel gown is often in dark colors. Overall, the two dresses initially have much looser silhouettes and were also much shorter than the ao dai we see now, since people were not yet equipped with modern sewing tools. Moving into the early 20th century, the ao dai silhouette is fairly loose, with an open collar which allowed the women to show off any necklaces they might wear. In the next period, 1930s to 1950s, French colonization had brought a Western influence into Vietnam. Hanoian artist Các Tương, aka L'Amour, varied ao dai into many different silhouettes, taking inspiration from Western fashion. L'Amour tightened up the ao dai to better fit the form of the Vietnamese woman's body. He raised the shoulders, extended the dress to reach floor length, changed to a brighter color scheme, and added Western details like puffy sleeve, heart-shaped collar, and a bow. In short, he made it sensual, flattering, and appealing to the eye. The design gained popularity over the next 4 years, but still, some claimed that the design was too sexy and not appropriate to Vietnamese culture. Soon after that, ao dai L'Amour was adjusted by painter Le Faux to be more traditional. He cut off the puffy sleeves and replaced them with the details from ao tu tung and ao ngu tung. From that point on until the 1950s, his version of ao dai with 2 flaps tight to the body and closed at the neck remained popular as it was accepted by the more conservative ideology at the time. However, around the late 1950s, the United States had replaced France as the occupying force. In 1958, Trung Le Xuân, the wife of the president's chief advisor, made a controversial fashion statement by wearing a V-neck collar dress with short sleeves and gloves. Although some praised her for her elegant take on the costume, many others were offended and felt this action was done in poor taste. The distaste for the modern version was so strong that the government banned the dress as it appeared to serve as an acceptance of capitalist ideals. But was the ban effective? Not really. In fact, it was in the 60s that ao dai gained the highest level of popularity, especially in southern Vietnam, since Saigon designer Yong Da Cao revolutionized the dress again with the addition of raglan sleeves. The front panel of ao dai was connected with the back panel by buttons, lined from collar to armpit and continuing down to the side of the hip. With this innovation, the dress showed fewer wrinkles, laying flat on the female body while still feeling comfortable in movement. The 70s and early 80s witnessed the country's reform period, Đổi mới, along with the wave of hippie culture, embracing the philosophy, live fast, die young. Ao dai was modernized with a mini version, lighter materials, vivid colors, patterns of plants, flowers, and geometric shapes. The bodice was sewn narrow and short to the knee, with wide body, low collar, and long trousers with wide bell bottoms up to 60 centimeters. This trend was popular until the mid-90s. In the 21st century, although being worn less on a daily basis, áo dài still remains as the national symbol of grace, beauty, cultural pride, and Vietnamese creativity. Designer Sĩ Hoang illustrates Vietnamese paintings as patterns on his áo dài, while Minh Han's famous for using hill tribe fabric. Recently, Thủy Nguyen reinvented áo dài with her unique silhouettes and her exclusive use of Vietnamese silk brocade. As a whole, the Vietnamese áo dài is a dress that everyone, including men, can customize to fit their own taste and figure. From high fashion to traditionalist and everything in between, there's no doubt why this dress is such a treasured element of Vietnamese culture.